How is everyone doing? Thank you for joining Mr. Brandon DeCruz, myself, Jeff Black. We are gathered for another episode of Chasing Clarity Health and Fitness Podcast. I said gathered because today, episode 32, holiday eating guide. So there are some strategies and tips for thriving during the holiday season. So whether you're gym pop and you're kind of like, all right, how do I navigate this mess? Or you're, maybe falling off the wagon and you're kind of like, I don't want to do any more damage during the holidays. Or if you're a fitness coach and you're interested in maybe some different strategies to deploy with your clients to help them out, the more impact you can create, obviously, the better for everyone out there. So, Brandon and I thought we would chat about this one today. But first, we were actually just talking back channel about like reels and videos and stuff like that. So I would like your all's feedback, Brandon and I would. Would you guys like us to post like sound bites of the episode and like video stuff? Because if that's the case, Brandon and I could make that happen. We're just curious because we like to engage with you all, what you guys would like to hear or see from us, because that makes it more fun for us. Because we'll just kind of keep doing the same offense over and over and over because Brandon and I are creatures of habit. I mean, shit, we get the same day regardless. I don't know about you, dude, but that time change, like I'm getting up at 2:43 my time and I am like, this sucks. So I just decided from here on out, I'm going to get up. I've got some courses I need to be working on for business because I'm really trying to improve my business acumen for 2023 to the point when I realized when I'm entering these rooms now where people are willing to give me significant amounts of money just based upon the numbers. And I want to know ins and outs. I don't know just some of the verbiage. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's that. They're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh yeah, that number right there. I just pay attention to that number. Like, well, you don't see this. And so I really decided I would work on that. So I was curious, how's the time change affecting you?
I'm going to be honest with you. I was just talking to my girl about this, that this has been the most drastic, I guess, impact that time change has ever had on me. And to mind you, in my previous career, I traveled around the country. So I've been in weeks where I've been traveling across the country in different time zones and then also had daylight savings. So imagine I'm 3 hours off of West Coast time, getting back to the Northeast, and then they're changing time again. So this was, really the first year that I felt a drastic impact because like I've been speaking about, I've really dialed in my sleep routine, and I'm naturally I'm an early riser, but I generally get into bed around 8:30 at this point. Previous to that, it was more like 9:30. But dude, at 7:30 in the evening, now obviously it's dark. I'm up in the Northeast, it's cold, but at 7:30, I'm ready to knock out at this point. But I still have work that I still have calls up until like 6:30, and then I eat my
Yeah.
last meal. I like to allocate about 2 hours between my last meal and going to bed. We've seen like circadian biology research that it's better for optimizing not only insulin sensitivity, but it's also better for sleep quality perspective because your body's not actively digesting nutrients, right prior to going to bed. And so I've been struggling to stay up. So this has really impacted me. But at the same time, yeah, I'm still getting up, 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m. at the latest. But you know what? It's part of my routine. And I know that I'm an early bird chronotype. So I'm someone that's extremely productive in the morning, especially being, due to the fact that I have ADD. So like I get easily distracted. And so when it's early and there's no one else awake in the world, I'm able to get my workout done, able to get a jump on some of my coursework. Like obviously, I'm taking coursework internationally. So a
Yeah.
lot of times they're 5 hours ahead of me in England. And so, if I get onto a course at, 5, 6 a.m. here, it's 10 or 11 a.m. there, and they're interactive, and I'm able to engage with both my classmates and my professors. And so I'm getting responses. Whereas if it was someone in the States, say I am taking a course in Colorado, so they're 2 hours behind where we are now. And so if I email them at 5 a.m., it's 3 a.m. their time. I'm not getting a response for another 5, 6, 7 hours. And so it's really been it's really lined well with my schedule. But yeah, this time change has wrecked me in terms of just me feeling sleepy earlier, but you make the most out of it.
Yeah, I'm the same boat, man. I could go to sleep at 6:30 my time. I was yawning last night. And I was like, no, I got to stay up till 7:15. And finally I was lights out. And at 2:43, I legitimately between 7.5 and 7 hours and 55 minutes, I will pop up. And I am one of those people, once I'm up, like I'm up, like my brain immediately goes to what fire do I need to put out upon seeing when I look at my phone. Um, but how's your last 7 days been real quick? So we get that. But I do have another question. What do you think of this mustache?
I think it looks great. I told you off air. Now you're getting the drop on
Ah,
me. Now
yes,
you're setting me up.
sir. Yes, sir.
I thought you had gone to a barber and gotten it done, but this is all your
No.
own skill work, man.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
my own skill work. Ladies and gentlemen, 84 men kill themselves a week and 75% of suicides are all male. mustaches. It's what I grew with my team at Iron House Strength and Conditioning for Movember. And so far, we've raised almost $1,000 for creativevets.org. We got 15 days to go. If you're interested in buying shirts, we sell that. Supplements, hit me up on IG. I'll be more than happy. Even if you just want to make a donation, we actually have it in our Iron House Strength and Conditioning link tree. If you're looking to make a donation on our behalf to support men's mental health, especially the veterans who give so much for our country. We wanted to really partner with them because a lot of our membership base is veterans and first responders. So sorry to cut you off. I just had to kind of get let the audience know that the mustache is still kicking ass.
So that is Jeff's ploy on getting you guys to watch us on YouTube, essentially. So you guys can see the mustache the entire time. Jeff, just so the audience knows and so I know, can we purchase the shirts online? Will you ship them out?
Yeah, I can ship them out, but we would have to do that through, I'd have to get you in contact with Thera. So if you guys are interested, the email is thefrontdesk@ironhouse615.com. So thefrontdesk@ironhouse615.com. Just say interested in purchasing a t-shirt to support creativevets.org in the subject, and we will get that done. I believe the shipping won't be too bad, but we'll make it happen. And we really appreciate everyone's support.
Absolutely. I will be ordering, but Farah, you will hear from me on WhatsApp. So that's my little exception. That's for being the co-host. But anyway, man, dude, it has been a phenomenal week. So this past week was my girl, obviously, you know her, Christina. It was her 35th birthday. So I surprised her with an all-inclusive trip of her choice. And we ended up just finishing booking it this morning. So the first week of March, we'll be headed out to Excellence Resorts, which is in Playa del Carmen, which is in the Dominican Republic.
Nice.
And yeah, man. So this will be the first non-business related trip that I've taken in a good decade. As you know, that any trip that I've taken has either been to an expo, to a seminar, to a workshop. It's always been somewhat business related, even on the occasions that were my birthday. So last year I went out to the PEC to celebrate my birthday and I spent time with you. So obviously it is for personal, but it's also from a business perspective. I'm always trying to grow. I'm always trying to level up in some capacity, but really I wanted to take her on a trip where we just relaxed, got away, and I wanted it to be in somewhat of the winter. So her birthday's now, but we're going to delay the trip for a little bit because we do have the PC coming up. We will be in Tampa in January. And then also, it's nasty out here in the Northeast, man. So she was so excited when I told her, what her gift was going to be. And so we're going to go the first week of March because honestly, I know it's different in Tennessee, but we still get snow up until like the third or fourth week of March here in Jersey. So I'm looking forward to getting out of the cold Northeast for a little bit, getting, a week-long vacation, just her and I, and really shutting off. This will be, probably the first time that I'll put away my phone, put away emails for a little bit. I'm going to make sure that, obviously I also told her when we were planning things, I said, listen, I need a couple months ahead of time. I want to give all of my clientele more than enough of an update and a heads up because I have, I'm going on 10 years coaching, man. I've never taken a week off of coaching. So it's not only from my own, like, workaholic standpoint, but my clients are so used to this responsive feedback. Like sometimes it'll be 5 or 6 hours that I'll go without responding to an email, and clients will check in if everything's all right. And it's not that they're rushing me. It's just, they're so used to such, frequent and such consistent communication. But, if I'm in courses or I'm in a lecture, now my schedule's a little bit differently. So, I put a lot of pressure on myself with my responsiveness, and I love that I have great communication with my clients, but I do want to take a little bit of time away, have some quality time with her and really, celebrate this. This is a big birthday for her. So, also in addition to that, this Friday, we have a big week coming up. So this Friday, we're throwing her a big birthday party. And so, I have some exams for some courses this week, and I'm going to try to get ahead on work so I can enjoy that. And because, we've put a ton of time and effort into planning this a party. So this has been like 4 months that we've been planning this for her birthday. And then, other than that, everything's been going well, been onboarding new clients, been really busy in that capacity. And then also, before we get into the topic of today, I do want to follow up on something. Because last week when we spoke about the science of sleep, the podcast that we did, you asked me a question about my opinion on like meticulous sleep tracking. And I had mentioned a study that I read years ago on this topic, and I had a few listeners that reached out about it. So I just wanted to go over it a little bit more because they asked me more details about the study in and of itself. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting to go into that topic, nor had I read the study in a few years. So I brushed up on it yesterday just so I had a little bit more of the details. But in general, we have plenty of data that suggests that if you're told you didn't sleep well, even if you did, you'll have worse cognitive performance than you did prior to receiving that information, as our psychology can play a massive impact and really have a detrimental impact in a negative perspective on our physiology. So last week, I specifically was speaking of a study that was conducted by Dr. Ellen Langer, where she took healthy young individuals and had them come into lab and go under 2 different sleep conditions on 2 different nights. So in one of the conditions, she had them sleep 8 hours, and in the other condition, she had them sleep 5 hours. And these were athletic individuals, well trained. And then what they did was, upon waking after both of those nights, they randomized these individuals into being informed that they either received 8 hours of full sleep or 5 hours of sleep. And what they did was they utilized a clock where they either sped it up fast, slowed it down, or let it, run normally to mimic these sleep directions, essentially, or these sleep lengths. And so then after each sleep condition, they had them do cognitive performance testing using what are called psychomotor vigilance tests, which essentially test both your cognitive state, but then also like your reaction time, your physical capacity with like motor skills. And then they also did subjective sleep ratings, and they found that subjects' reaction times were significantly quicker when individuals were told that they had slept for 8 hours, but actually had only slept for 5 hours. So just by telling them, listen, you slept more, you had a great quality night of sleep, they did better. However, on the opposite side, their reaction times were significantly slower when individuals had actually slept 8 hours, but were told that they had only received 5 hours of sleep. So this is just another example of the nocebo effect, or essentially the negative effect that can be brought about by someone's belief. So really what I was trying to allude to last week with the sleep tracking is we know that these aren't highly accurate. So if you were to look at your sleep data and you're to see, that you got really terrible REM sleep or you got really terrible deep sleep, it might just compound that effect of that sleep, even if it wasn't true, even if the device was inaccurate or it cut off or the Wi-Fi went down or the Bluetooth. And so really we have to be very cautious when interpreting this data and not overanalyzing it, because you could be inducing more issues with this data. You should use it just for really what the tool is designed for. So with the Aura, it's best with like your heart rate. It's good with tracking steps, things of that sort. But a lot of these aren't, Aura is the best validated. But if you're looking at an Apple Watch, that shit is not validated for sleep. So you really don't want to put too much stock into those assessments. And really, just like you would, and we talk about this all the time with calorie tracking devices, energy expenditure devices, we don't want to take this data and over extrapolate it and really like rely on it heavily and base our mental or our psychological, reactions to them, nor what we do with our nutrition or what we do with our training. Like if you see that your HRV is piss poor one day, but you feel great when you're stepping in the gym, don't just pull back on your reps in reserve because it said that you had a lower HRV score. Unless you're sick, unless there's really some actual physical and mental detriments that you're feeling when you're walking in, like you're fatigued, you're dealing with an injury, or you're really feeling like you don't have it in the tank, then of course auto-regulate for that day. But just because a device tells you that you should have poor performance doesn't mean that that you actually will have poor performance. And if you think you're going to, you're most likely going to, because our psychology can impact our physiology.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of times that I wake up and my Oura ring will say one thing and I'm like, no, I don't really feel that way. You know what I mean? It tried to tell me that I felt a lot better Sunday than I know I did when I woke up. So, real quick, I wanted to touch on something. So, before I get my 7 days, but you had mentioned about taking a week off. So I did that the week I was in Austin. I told all my clients, I'm like, hey, they told me it was going to be brutal. I just don't have the bandwidth. And every single client respected that, man. So
Awesome.
what I did was I personally just was like any clients I kind of knew might need help. I just touched base with them that like Friday, Saturday. I was like, hey, are you sure you're good for the week? Right? Like anything that you see, because I will be out of pocket. The earliest you would hear from me is the following Monday. And I want to make sure you're set for success. Dude, that's all you got to do. And you know who those people are, the ones that might just need a little
Absolutely.
extra loving. But I think you'll be more than fine if you're a client of Brandon's listening. Let him have that week off and enjoy himself. He deserves some fun in the sun. But my last 7 days were super cool. I hosted, I have a good group of guys down here. We brought a few new guys into the group. So there was 11 guys in my house on Saturday. We bought the UFC fight.
Hell
And
yeah.
then I went and bought 9 different bottles of bourbon, and we did a bourbon trail with a potluck. And I went through it twice. So I was really, really, really screwed up Sunday. I did not feel good. Keegan was laying around with me all day. He's like, by the end of the day, he's like, Dad, I'm tired. We didn't do anything. I was like, yeah, man, that's part of getting old. Welcome to watching it happen. But otherwise, man, business is good. I'm really just kicking things up. I sent Mr. Pressfield my um copy, my last chapter of my book, and he thought I sealed it up really good. I submitted that over to my editor. So now I'll get the draft back and I have to have it all complete by February. So it'll be pretty cool to kind of get that off my plate and
Now
stuff like that.
let me ask you. Well, first of all,
Sure.
congratulations, because
Thank
that's
you.
immense, and you're way ahead of the game. Obviously, I know on my end what your timeline was, and you had until the holidays to do this. So you're about a month ahead of what we really about 6 weeks ahead of what we had projected. But so that's phenomenal. First and foremost, did they give you a timeline by any chance when you will hear back about the like what is the like? So I know the peer review process for someone like Alan Aragon or something like a research review, but this is a full book. This is what 80,000 words, maybe 70,000 words.
It clicked in at 97,117. I'll probably end up editing 20% out from what Steven said. So, but he says better to go ahead and just overdo it because what you'll find when you start doing it is there's repetition. And you'll kind of, he alluded to that. He's like, you got to really go in there and like really tease that out. Like, have you said that before? And I was like, all right. So it's been great advice. We're actually bringing him on the Excellence Cartel. And I, if you guys are listening, Chasing Clarity, and like Steven to come on ours, we can do a whole podcast with him down the road or something about maybe what it takes to be a better writer or, whatever we can talk about. But we're actually going to talk about how he mentored me and what we worked on and like some of the critiques and stuff like that and go over his new memoir. But, it's been a project, man. And I think what they were kind of alluding to that they would get it back to me. And then I pretty much had the gun to my head to get it done by like February in order for the book to come out like Q3, Q4 next year.
That's awesome.
So it's been good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this bad boy. So we thought we'd put together a holiday eating or holiday eating guide, and then we'll have some strategies, obviously, tips for thriving during the holiday season. But the first thing we want to talk about is like holidays in general and how they affect like habitual weight gain, because you will see this with people unless they're active going into it and have like a good amount of discipline. I watch at my gym, it is hilarious, like how dead it is now. And then like what happens is about 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, slowly people kind of start coming back in. And by middle of January, it's just full on madhouse, right? But what happens is over the course of years, people slowly gain weight. And this is one trap period that it happens. And I also think it's because summer, people like don't like they drink a lot during the summer. They tend to have more fun, more barbecues, more things like that, more ice cream because it's hot. And then they only get like a couple months. And then that's football season for some of us, like me. That's why I don't like dieting during football season. And then you're bam, right in the holidays, so like 6 to 7 weeks of just straight up parties, booze, all the food that you don't want to say no to. So really you're looking at almost like Q3 and Q4. It's like traps, like, right. Like people can just kind of just get put in this position that they're behind and they don't even know it. And then what happens is over the course of 10 years, you might have gained 10 or 20 pounds even if you were trying to diet and exercise along that way. And the people who don't even participate in active lifestyles got it far worse. So we thought we would kind of talk about that. So Brandon, from your end, is there any literature kind of talking about how this lays out with the habitual weight gain that we see take place as coaches in the trenches?
Yeah, well, you already know that I went through this, my man. So
Awesome.
we're gonna go deep into this topic because this is something that I've seen individuals, whether it be clients, friends, family, really struggle with. So really, the intention of this episode was to teach, and really get our listeners and our audience and our clients to thrive during the holiday, rather than just looking at it as something or a period of time where they're just trying to survive. So completely different mindset, a mindset of abundance rather than a mindset of restriction. And so, the holiday season is quickly approaching, and this is the time of the year that's not only the most wonderful time of the year, but it's also the time in which weight gain is most prevalent. And so the holidays are something many of us look forward to, as it's an opportunity for us to connect and celebrate with our friends, family, and loved ones, which is something we should all, take advantage of and make the most out of. Yet, despite the fact that this time of year is something many of us enjoy, the holidays can also be a very challenging time period for anyone, any of us who have body composition goals. And many of us have encountered multiple holiday seasons where we've struggled, to stay in shape and in alignment with our physique and health related goals, which is why we want to cover some of the strategies to help you avoid struggling during the holiday season, especially when it comes to staying on track with your nutrition. And so, like I myself, I've been training for 17 years at this point. I've been coaching for 10 years. And throughout that time, I've gained a lot of experience from both my own struggles during the holiday season, as well as through helping hundreds of clients get through the holiday season without packing on the pounds that many often do during this period. So, when we really think about it, like the goal of the holidays should be to enjoy these once a year occasions with those who we love, while also maintaining a lot of the health promoting habits and behaviors that not only allow us to look good, but to feel good as well. Because a lot of times it's not just the physical detriments that this time of year has on us, but it's also how we feel as well. It's not just what we look like, it's how it affects our digestion, how it affects our metabolic health, how it affects our mental health, even with our relationship with our body image. And so yes, a component of the holidays is enjoying the festive foods that are a part of these occasions, but there are healthier ways to go about the holiday than how many approach them. So, seeing as Thanksgiving is really just next week, man, it's coming up quickly. We figured that this week would be the perfect time to tackle the topic of how to not only survive the holiday season, but to thrive during it, as the holidays are going to be something we celebrate every year. So, the sooner we can improve our habits and behaviors during this time of year, the more we can set ourselves up for succeeding during the season, both this season and then going forward. And also, like, this is something that I find myself really having engaging topic or engaging conversation with many of my clients, because I'm a big believer in empowering clients and having them embrace challenges with a positive mindset rather than seeing something like the holidays as an insurmountable challenge that's automatically going to derail their progress and cause them to backslide based on the experiences that they've had in the past during these occasions. So, the intention of today's episode is to educate listeners on how you can approach the holidays in a manner which allows you to enjoy yourselves, yet not completely derail your progress. So by the end of this episode, we're going to go through the research, we're going to go through strategies and tips, but really the intention of this is really to provide you with some applicable information and tips to use during your own occasions and your own celebrations, regardless of what holidays you celebrate. So you can approach the holiday season in a way where you're better able to balance enjoying yourself and enjoying each of these occasions while also maintaining the pursuit of your physique and health related goals. Now, when it comes to the actual research on holiday season and weight gain, statistics show that the average weight gain of US adults ranges between 1.1 to 2.2 pounds gained per year. And this is the average we see for those ranging between the age of 18 and 55 years old. So this is extremely applicable to most of the listeners of the show, as well as like the clients that we work with. That's right within our age range. And so this yearly weight gain is not only negative from a body composition perspective, as it adds up and compounds over time, but it's also been linked in the research to the increased incidence or increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity related cancer, and mortality. So, what's important to note is that the research also indicates that the majority of our yearly weight gain is accumulated during the winter holiday season, spanning from November, so right about this time, to January. And it isn't taken off during the rest of the year, which is why we see that most people, with most individuals, their weight continues to climb and trend up with each passing decade. So when it comes to the research on this time of the year, researchers at the National Institute of Health, so the NIH, conducted a prospective study of holiday weight gain, where they analyzed, thousands upon thousands of people over decades, and found that from the last week of November to the first week of January, people gain an average of 51% of the weight they gained during the entire year. So basically, during a 6 week period, during the 6 week holiday period, which accounts for approximately 12% of the year, most will gain more than half of the weight that they gain per year. They also found that the amount gained during the holiday season is not reversed during the spring or summer months, which results in an average of a 1 pound net gain per year, meaning we're adding a pound at least to our body weight on average for the US Americans across the course of the year. And what a lot of people don't realize is weight gain usually occurs in chunks of time where we eat an excessive amount of calories, which is why there's such a high prevalence for weight gain during the holiday season, seeing as many splurge and overindulge during this time of year. And a lot of times people will look at weight gain and they'll think it's happening in these long time courses. So they think, oh, if it's 1 or 2 pounds per year, that must be done throughout the course of the year. But that's really not what we see in the literature. And really, if we think about it from a physiological perspective, we look at metabolism. We've spoken about this many times. Our bodies and our metabolisms are very adaptive and dynamic in nature. So if weight gain occurred over long, slow timescales, then an average of a 2.2 pound increase in body weight would equate to about a 21 calorie increase per day across all 365 days of the year. However, if we simply ate in a 21 calorie surplus each day, we most likely wouldn't see any weight gain at all, as our metabolisms would upregulate. And we've spoken about that, the upregulation that comes with feeding more, for longer durations of time. So we would upregulate our metabolic rate, and we essentially buffer this small of an increase in calories, just like if we were to go into like a 21 calorie deficit. We're not going to see any tangible, fat loss from that. So the issue with this holiday weight gain is it's a couple pounds per year that we don't tend to lose throughout the rest of the year, and it compounds year after year. So every year we're predisposed to gaining weight and body fat during this time of year. And it's usually not due to the individual holidays themselves. So really, we're going to talk about strategies for the holidays themselves, but also, we want to switch your mindset on how to approach the season in and of itself, because many, during this time of year, many veer away from the positive habits and behaviors which have served them up until this point, and they put them on the back burner for this extended period of time rather than taking each holiday as one day at a time.
I have a question. Why do you think that is? Because like you would think by now, a lot of people like already know this. Do you think that it's social media confusing people? Do you think it's some of the content that maybe coaches are putting out there? And what I mean by that is because I will hear every year, year after year, like people like, well, if I take my steps all day, well, if I go work out that day. So do you think it's just more disbelief, or do you think it's more confusion as to why people continually find themselves on this loop?
I think it's more so a deviation from habits and behaviors that have led them to success in the past. However, they kind of discard them. So, for instance, let's think about it just logistically. If you are to still engage in your same habits in terms of exercise, you're still training 5 days a week, 3 to 5 days per week, you're still hitting your steps, but now you're increasing calories across a 6 week period of time. We would think, automatically you're going to end up in a surplus, and it's going to compound over time. A lot of people think that they can undo that, but we have to look at all the factors that come with the holidays. It's not just the 3 or 4 holidays that we celebrate during the season itself. It is that, plus the fact that there are a lot of holiday occasions, parties, gatherings. There's Friendsgiving, there's Thanksgiving, there are Halloween parties, there are work parties. People often, instead of looking at the holidays as these individual days where, yes, let's indulge, let's embrace this occasion and really partake in it, they make it about not only days of enjoying food and enjoying festivities, they make it about weeks. And generally what I see is with individuals is that they don't just treat the holiday as one day, they celebrate, they maximize that day. They let those habits that they had on that particular day drive them away from the habits that have been serving them previously. So
Yeah.
now they're overeating, now they're drinking more. Also, it's getting colder out, so they're less likely to go hit their steps. They're a little less active. Like you just mentioned, as a gym owner yourself, you see that the amount of people that are frequent in your gym are starting to decrease. They're going to different activities. Instead of going to the gym on a Friday night to smash a training session, they're going out to the bars, or they're going out to a work party or a Friendsgiving. And so these are, it's not just those one days and, those single days in isolation that add up. It's not like, hey, I ate a lot more calories on Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and that caused a 2 pound weight gain average per year, year after year. It's that you took this period that should have been, select occasions and individual celebratory events, and you made it an entire period of time. And if you took that in any perspective, if you took that and you put a 6 week vacation in the summer where you trained a little bit less and you ate a lot more, you're going to gain weight. We just happen to do that and almost make an excuse for it. And we think about it as acceptable because it's the holiday season. So we chuck it up. It's only one time per year. Yes, these occasions are one time per year, but that's 6 weeks. That should not be seen as a time period in which we just get away from all the habits, behaviors, and actions that are leading us to the progress that we're looking for. And you have to realize that your actions need to match your ambitions. So if you want to maintain a positive body composition, you want to attain good metabolic health, you have to maintain those habits that have led you to that. So if you just discard them for 6 weeks of time, you have to realize you're gonna have to pay that back. For every gimme, there's a gotcha. And so if you're gonna, overindulge, overeat, overdrink for an extended period of time, it's not that any of those things cannot be done, but in moderation. Because if you do anything in excess, it's going to be bad. If you overtrain in excess, it's going to be bad. You do too many steps, it's going to be bad. Anything in excess generally doesn't serve us so well.
I agree with you because I like saw one like last year. I think one of my clients did 25,000 steps on Thanksgiving. I said, well, shit, would you walk to West Virginia to see grandma? And she's like, no, I just want to stay that active. I'm like, well, how many plates did you have? I had like 5 plates. I'm like, well, I mean, that's like bad. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I said, you might have actually worked yourself to get too hungry. And then by then, once that, because that will happen, like if yeah, you know that. So it's just something to consider. Now, the next one we want to get into is transitioning to maintenance during the holidays. See, this is my thing. I tell all my clients this. do not give up ground during the holidays, right? Like, be present. It's not about losing weight during the holidays, it's about maintaining. So I really like that you came up with this topic about transitioning into maintenance. What does that look like for people? What is maintenance? What would you define that as? And what are some things that they could do to kind of help ease that transition? And then obviously, some literature stuff in there too.
Yeah, so being in an active fat loss phase is something I'd advise most clients to not to attempt during the holiday season, especially if you're someone who's already deep into a dieting phase. If you've lost a substantial amount of fat and have had to significantly decrease your calories over the last 3 to 6 months, as you're most likely in a state where you're already experiencing higher levels of hunger and greater food focus. And this is where going into whether it be a reverse dieting phase or a maintenance phase can be really useful, as it'll allow us to bring our calories back up to maintenance calories, which will give you a lot more room and calories to play with and work with. And I generally like, with my own approach, I like to build up my clients' calorie intakes prior to the holiday season so that their calorie budgets are higher, their training is at a really productive and progressive level, and they're more resilient to the calorie increases which inherently come with the holidays. Like, we're not going to restrict ourselves during the holidays, so let's build up some ability to buffer these extra calories. And so this also allows us to better align our actions with our goals, because when I have a client in a maintenance or a building phase during the holidays, we're more easily able to use the extra calories eaten during these occasions towards our current goal of building muscle and fueling ourselves, rather than if I had a client in a fat loss phase where the extra calories would negate some of the deficit we've created and the fat loss results we're working towards. And there are some, I got to be honest with you, there are some rare exceptions to this, such as when I have a client in a contest prep phase, which requires staying in a deficit during this time period to accomplish their goal, which is to get in shredded stage condition. So, for example, this year, I only have one client in prep currently, but he's an IFBB pro, and he has his first pro show of the season 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. So he'll be dieting during the early part of the holiday season. I will give him a refeed during Thanksgiving, but it will still be within, it will just be more, obviously higher calories than he's allocated, but he's not going to go off the handlebars because we still have a show 2 weeks, after. But what we had planned, and we've already have discussed this, is then we'll be ending the season prior to Christmas, and I'll be transitioning him right into a recovery phase so he can enjoy Christmas and the New Year's with his friends and family. So, really, my suggestion is if you're going to diet through this season, as you have a goal in sight that isn't deadline specific, like a contest, like with this specific client that I have, this is where I'd personally employ a diet break with a client so that we're only in a deficit on the weeks in between holidays like Thanksgiving,
Mhm.
Christmas, and New Year's, rather than trying to actively stay in a deficit during the holidays themselves.
Good
So I really
call.
think there's a really good value to going to maintenance.
I like that one a lot. Now, is there any literature on this? I would assume not, but I'd be curious if there was, because I know you're the PubMed horde between both of us. But I've never seen it in any book I've read. Normally, what they tell people to do is flip into keto before Thanksgiving, and then that way you have your keto, Thanksgiving. I've seen that before. I was like, well, that's drastic.
No, so I've never seen anything studied in this regard. This is all from in the trenches. This is stuff that I've
Yeah.
just seen work in and of itself. From a physiological perspective, we know that if you are in a dieting phase, you're experiencing metabolic adaptations. The only way to reverse those is to get it back to energy balance, which would be at least maintenance calories. But even just from like a practical application perspective, say you're in a 500 calorie deficit, you're trying to maintain that over the course of a week. That is a 3,500 calorie deficit, but you decide to eat off plan, that one day. So you only created a 3,000 calorie deficit throughout the course of that week. And then on Thanksgiving, you overeat and you easily negate that. You could just negate the fat loss benefits that you were, or fat loss results that you were looking for, or that you were working towards. And that's why I don't really find this to be a conducive time period to be dieting during, because you're not only in a mental restriction, you're in a physical restriction. But if we get your calories back up to at least maintenance previous to it, your body's going to upregulate a lot of its metabolic processes, where you're going to be more inclined to, have higher NEAT levels because they're not suppressed from being in a deficit. You're going to have better and more productive training sessions. You're going to have higher energy. You're going to have more, a higher total daily energy expenditure. So I've just seen this in practice to be a really good transitionary period where we focus on a different goal and we utilize the concept of nutritional periodization, where we go in and out of different phases, goal specific phases, not only based on the client's physical goals, but also their lifestyle, based on, the activities, the festivities they have coming up, and really aligning our goals with the time of year, which are going to be best to accomplish and to approach those goals during.
What? Well, now we have tip three: going into each celebratory dinner with a plan.
Wait, my
What do
man,
you
we skipped tip one.
treat the holidays as a day rather than a full season of splurge? Fair point. I jumped around, so that's my bad. I
All
think
good,
we.
brother.
I think I get moving so good, we get flowing. So treat the holidays as days rather than a full season of splurge. I mean, I think that one says what it says. So I'm just curious what your take is.
Yeah, no. So I really wanted to hit on this because I want to shift the mindset. This is not only about giving you guys, strategies and tips that are going to help your physiology in terms of your metabolic response to these, days of increased calories, but also your mental, perspective on things. Because, like I always say, we cannot separate physiology from psychology and vice versa. And when we actually look at the holiday season, it stretches a duration of around 6 weeks. But within that, there really are only 3 to 4 days of holiday celebration. So we have generally Thanksgiving, Christmas or Hanukkah, and New Year's. And if we add in an extra day for those who celebrate one of those holidays twice, like I'll tell you in my case, in my household, I celebrate with my family Christmas Eve, and then I celebrate Christmas Day with my girl's family. If we really look at that and we really take that out and we extrapolate that out, that's 4 days out of a holiday season that stretches 39 days. So if you're
True.
really consistent and you only eat off plan on those 4 days, you can easily stay on track as those 4 days only account for 10 to 11% of the entire holiday season. Now, this is what I was speaking about earlier. This is where many people go wrong because they treat the holidays as a 6 week period of overindulgence where they veer off for the majority of that time period. So it's generally not the individual holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas that truly cause any damage at all. It's the weeks after Thanksgiving leading into Christmas and then after Christmas, leading into New Year's, where all the excess calories start to add up and compound and cause fat gain. And this is where having a plan ahead of time can be really helpful, as although there's only 4 days of holidays within that span of time, there are a lot of holiday gatherings, a lot of holiday, festivities, such as work parties that will come up along the way. So this is where I really, suggest and I really encourage you guys to switch your mindset on the holidays and really, treating these as special occasions. Not everything is a special occasion that needs to be celebrated, but those days in and of themselves, celebrate them, maximize them, make the most out of them. But when you're going to these holiday parties that are outside of the actual holidays themselves, look at them as a time to connect and enjoy time with those around you instead of making it about all about the food and the drinks that are being served. Because really, if you're to stay consistent throughout this whole time period, you will not succumb to the general weight gain that everyone else does, and you'll still be able to enjoy those holidays and make the most out of it.
Man, I actually really, really appreciate you saying that not everything's worth a celebratory meal and things like that because I think that's where it is. You'll begin to celebrate everything. Like, oh my
Everything
God,
becomes a special.
I did 10,000 steps. I deserve this extra protein bar. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. And
But
I'm
that's
like,
that's an issue with our society. So when we were
true,
kids, we didn't get, a gold star for participating. We didn't get a participation ribbon or medal or gold medal just because we showed
true.
up. We had to, this was about excelling. And I'm not saying that it needs to be about chasing perfection. It's really about your own personal progression. And that's why there are awards like most improved and things of that sort. But in our society today, everything's a special thing. Everything is a special event. Everything's,
Uh-huh.
a way to escape. So on Friday, it's let's celebrate that we completed a week of work. This is a general part of our society. We have to work. This is a part of our lives. You shouldn't be celebrating and trying to escape reality by going out drinking every single weekend to celebrate that you got through another work week. If you're really that unhappy that you need to have some type of comfort mechanism in that type of perspective, you need to change what you're doing during the week and find something you're passionate about. Because I'll tell you, I work 7 days a week and I don't find the need to have to celebrate and look for comfort, whether it be through drinks or food.
I agree 100%. Actually, I think it works out well that we went to maintenance and then here because the next one lines up well going into a celebratory dinner with the plan.
Absolutely. This
Because
is huge
actually,
for
I will
me.
say, yeah. So I think we have to define that. Like, we just talked about like not everything's a celebration, right? So then how do you plan against that? Like, I just think it's a lot of mindset. For me, it's just kind of like, hey, like I tend to be too hard on myself. Like my counselor is always like, hey, do you celebrate these things? Like, I'm like, no. And he's like, why not? I'm like, because it's meaningless. Like at the end of the day, like life still moves forward, right? Like those memories can be there, and how I celebrate them matters only to me. And everyone else is telling me how I should celebrate them, and that's not who I am. Do you think it's because, like you said, everybody identifies with like I hate use that word. Oh, they ruined it for me now. But do you think it is because everybody like looks out there and goes, "Oh yeah, I should celebrate that. I should celebrate this and that meal and that plan." Like, going to your friend's house and having a meal and because you feel obligated, going to your friend's house, your family's house and having a meal because you feel obligated, going to Aunt Susan's house and having had the pie. Do you think that's how it piles up? Or, like how do people make plans against that? Because hurting people's feelings is real, man. Like, especially the
Absolutely.
holidays, a lot of people take that offensive if you don't eat their food.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I approach it with myself and with my own clients, but I also, I think that this will relate and really apply to a lot of our audience because these are health-minded, physique-focused individuals who
True.
want to progress. They are, whether it's in a business capacity, they're coaches, or they are fitness professionals, or it is within a physique development capacity. They are looking for progression and they're generally go-getters. A lot of the people that respond to when I post our show or they DM me or they DM you, these are people that are go-getters. So they have a very similar mindset to both you and I, which is why we're able to relate to them and why our podcasts even speak to them or why we get the questions that we do. So when we think about it, we got to look at the holidays. This is the time of year where there are more celebrations and food filled festivities than any other time of the year. And although I never believe food should be the main focus during these occasions, I do, I have to say, got to be honest with you, I do find it to be an important component of each holiday, the individual holidays in themselves, not the season. And I really think that we have to look at it as food is not just fuel. It's also these meals, these holiday gatherings are also an ingrained part of our culture as breaking bread with our loved ones is a tradition that far preceded our bodybuilding goals and any of our fitness pursuits, as this is something many of us have been doing since our childhoods. So, in my case and with my clients, I want them to be able to truly enjoy the holidays, but on the days themselves. So, that's why we plan ahead of time. And so, really how I look at this, planning starts weeks in advance. So this includes being as consistent as possible with their nutrition, their training, their steps, and their stress management leading up to the celebratory days themselves so that they're in the best position, both physically and mentally, to not only enjoy the holiday and the extra food that comes along with it, but it will also have the lowest likelihood of impacting them in a negative way as they've been nailing everything and ticking off the boxes needed to make progress prior to the occasions and after the occasions themselves rather than being inconsistent leading into it. So that's where, I believe in celebrating the days themselves. Or, say for instance, I have a client that they don't celebrate actually on Christmas, but they celebrate a week prior, just because that's how, their family, structure set up, whatever it is, whatever that day is important to you, but it can't be every day. Every day can't be a special holiday or occasion. And so with my clients, I don't have them track calories during their holiday free meals. I don't know if you do, but I don't make them do so. But I do always make it very clear. I'm very realistic and I want to encourage awareness and critical thinking with my clients. So despite the fact that I don't have them track their calories, I still make it known that calories still count regardless of whether we track them or not. So despite the fact that I don't set, say, a calorie or macro target for them to try to track and hit, I do like creating a plan of action with each client ahead of time based on their goals, where I suggest some habits and behaviors they should implement around the meals, which is based on what phase they're currently in and what goals we're working towards in the present moment. So what I encourage each and every person to do around celebratory meals is to choose their food sources wisely. That's the first thing. It's not that any foods at a holiday occasion need to be seen as off limits, but I do believe that free meals should be done in a manner where we consciously think about what we're going to make your meal up of and pick the things you truly enjoy. And I personally approach these meals in a manner where I look at each food that's available, like each food that's spread out on the holiday spread. And I think, is this food worth it or not worth it in terms of the calories, the satiety, and the enjoyment it's going to provide me with? And this is something I think many others fail to do, as it's almost like they think, like many go into a holiday occasion, they think that because a dish is available and it's there, they have to eat it. And because someone else prepared it, they have to eat it. And they'll include it on their plate and eat it. And I think all that does is just add extra calories that many look back later on and either regret eating or they didn't even enjoy it. So they did it because Aunt Susan said, she had her pie that she liked, and you ate it to appease her. And what we have to realize, we're all adults on the show. We're adults. We have our own decisions, and it's not to offend those around you, but we have to realize that we have to align our actions with our own goals. And we also, just like we accept our families. So, for instance, my family's not super health conscious, but I don't judge them what they're eating and they're drinking. Just like their food decisions don't impact me and my mindset or the comments that I make to them, I expect them to have the same respect for my food choices. And if you have relationships and you have friendships where they don't respect that about you, you need to set boundaries. And so I encourage that with clients. Listen, if you feel uncomfortable, you don't want to have extra shots with your friends, you don't want to eat this stuff, just say, hey, no, thank you. Or, what I do a lot of times, if I'm somewhere where I feel very uncomfortable saying no, I'll just say, hey, I have an intolerance to that, or I have a sensitivity to that. And then everyone
Yeah.
leaves me the fuck alone. So in my particular case, when it comes to, Thanksgiving's coming up, for example, with Thanksgiving, I usually go into the meal knowing the specific foods I'm going to make most of my plate of. And for me, I'm going to have a large serving of my mom's white meat turkey breast. She specifically puts it aside for me, so it's pretty much reserved. So she
You
specifically has
spoiled
that.
ass baby.
Yeah. Hey man, I'm a mama's boy, so it's all good. If my
All
mom's
right.
listening to
Well,
this, mom, I love you. And
Mom,
so
you did a good job with him, but just spoil him like that. Stop
I
that.
got to get that white meat, my man. And then I'm gonna have sweet potatoes that are my favorite, and then I'm gonna have a portion of her stuffing. And for me, those are always my top three favorite items for Thanksgiving dinner. But when I look at it, she makes like 7 to 10 dishes, so the house is stacked. But those are the things that I get the most enjoyment, the most pleasure, the most satiety out of. And they also, it's not only eating the foods that I like or that taste delicious. It's about the foods that like me and that impact my digestion in a good capacity. I'm not going
Yeah.
to eat something that's loaded with butter and oil that generally doesn't hit my stomach well just because someone prepared it. I appreciate the effort that you put into it, but at the same time, I'm going to respect the things that I need to do to make sure that I'm in a good position in terms of not only my physique and my mentality, but also how I can show up to the event and how I could sustain myself throughout that event. So if I'm eating stuff that makes me feel bad, whether it be physically or mentally, it's going to impact my ability to connect with those around me. So that's really important to me. So for instance, my mom makes this ham every year and everyone loves it. It's to die for. But I'm not a big fan of ham, so I just don't eat it. I respect the fact that she makes it. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to
Mhm.
eat that just because she does. The same thing, Christina, she's big into pumpkin. She makes pumpkin pie, pumpkin cake, every pumpkin bread. She
Ugh.
loves it and everyone loves it. And honestly, I've tried it and it's good. And she puts a lot of effort and a
It's
lot of love
good.
into it, but it's just not something. I'm not a big pumpkin guy. So
That's
as
the way you
boring as it
said it.
sounds, what I do is I just make sure that there's a container, a pint of peanut butter halo top. That's my favorite, like ice cream. I just particularly like that. And so I would rather go with that, save some calories, and have any cookie or cake that I don't really like, and I'm just eating to appease other people. So when it comes down to it, guys, you need to choose your food sources wisely based on what suits you best, what you want. Don't let anyone else tell you what to eat. We're all adults. We all make our own decisions. And just because something is available, something is there in the occasion, doesn't mean you have to eat it.
Dude, I'm laughing so hard. Christina, I'm quite assure you by his facial expressions, he meant good as an excellent. Like it is an excellent pumpkin thing that you make. That just don't disregard that. All right, let's talk about some additional strategies to help you balance your ability to maximize enjoyment while also maintaining calorie intake. So, I mean, you don't obviously want people showing up with Tupperware. I mean,
No, but I think
I like when clients will text me that, be like, I'm going to stay on my diet the whole day. And I'm like, I mean, if that's what's good for your mental health, fine. But, don't feel bad if you do have a plate along the way. And I just leave it at that. So,
absolutely
well,
no. But you know what? Over the years, there's a ton of strategies I've used with myself and my clients that have helped us not only enjoy the holidays, but do so in a manner that doesn't derail our physique goals. And, I've seen that these have worked, and these don't include being that hermit that brings all your own Tupperware. So, I've been that guy. I've dieted through holidays and I've went through those experiences, but now I'm in a different place in my life where I want to enjoy things, but I also want to set myself up for success. So there are certain strategies that I utilize, like for instance, one of the most useful strategies I found are preloading techniques. So,
mm,
preloading strategies are things you either drink before or eat at the start of a meal to help induce greater feelings of fullness, which can help you manage your hunger and reduce the likelihood of you overeating at the subsequent meal. So, the next meal. So, a lot of issues with around holidays, and I've encountered this with many clients, is that people that have had predispositions or they've had a history of binge eating will go over the top because it's almost like their families, it's the one occasion, it's a few occasions of the year where their family's almost encouraging these behaviors, maybe not knowing that person's psychological profile or their history with dieting, with eating, with their relationship with food. So the first one I like to use is a water preload, or it could be a fluid or a liquid preload. And so the first preload technique I like to use is the 2 cup rule, meaning you drink 2 cups or 16 ounces of water or a non-calorie containing beverage like diet soda or unsweetened tea 15 to 30 minutes prior to eating your holiday meal. And drinking fluids prior to a meal can help with reducing hunger and increasing feelings of fullness because it causes your stomach to stretch, which is one of the main ways to increase satiety, because essentially there's mechanical sensations that we deliver from the stomach, and those cause satiety signals to go to our brains, which is helpful because you'll be able to get full from eating less food during the meal itself. And we also have research looking at liquid preloads. And when subjects drank 2 cups of water pre-meal, it led to 4 pounds greater weight loss over 12 weeks than when a group who didn't use the water preload strategy. So we see that this is effective not only for fat loss, but this could also induce, less calories eaten at the next meal, after you do this. Now, the next preload I find extremely effective is a protein preload. So, by eating lean protein sources first in a meal, you not only derive appetite management benefits, but you also get benefits to your metabolic health. So, taking in an adequate amount of protein in a meal has been shown to induce greater feelings of satiety and fullness, which can help curb hunger and leave you less likely to overconsume calories. And we see time and time again in research that when individuals are put on a high protein diet and allowed to eat to fullness, they consume far less calories and gain less fat than when they are put on an equal diet, but just with lower protein and allowed to eat to fullness. Then when we also look at the benefits of protein, it has the highest thermic effect of feeding. So we're netting out the least amount of calories. It's the hardest macronutrient to store as body fat when overfeeding, which is something we covered with Alan Aragon when he was on the show. And it also provides the highest satiety per macro. And then I also recommend, I do this with a lot of my clients, that they start their meal out with a large serving of veggies. So go with have that liquid preload 15 to 30 minutes prior, start your meal out with protein and veggies. I always like that combination because I like to have them have a large serving of veggies in their holiday meals, as veggies are not only high volume and highly satiating, but also ensures that they're hitting their micronutrient and their fiber targets. Because let's think about it realistically. If you go right for the stuffing and right for the hyperpalatable foods, the cakes, and you're never going to get around to the micronutrient dense food sources. And then also, what I like to do is I'll often suggest something easy. I'm like, listen, have a big ass salad prior to the meal, as this will help you feel fuller, and you'll also get a nice serving of fiber, which in and of itself can actually lower your calorie intake, because there's research that has been done which has shown that increasing fiber intake by an additional 14 grams can lead to a 10% decrease in ad libitum calorie intake. So just by increasing fiber 14 grams, you can reduce your calorie intake by 10%, which is pretty substantial when we think about it. And so those are what I like to do at the meal themselves. And then I also like to utilize a couple other things to just help, my clients feel more comfortable and more in control, essentially. Because I think that's a big component of the holidays that we lose sight of. Like, a lot of people have this all or nothing mentality. And it's like, I like to look at diet and nutrition as a dimmer switch that we turn up and down based on the phase that we're in, the goal that we have, and then also the occasions. Whereas a lot of people, they're like, well, if I'm going to a holiday, I can't have any of my normal foods, my normal meals. So, fuck it, I'm off the wagon. So one strategy I found to be highly beneficial for helping me to not go, way over my calorie and my macro targets during the holidays is to bring a few dishes which I prepare myself. So generally, I'll always make sure to bring both a fresh salad and mixed fruit platter, which allows me to not only have access to micronutrient dense filling food sources that might not have been available at the holiday itself. And these are foods that I feel best eating, and also allows me to share some of my healthy habits, eating habits, with those I love. So I'm not only improving my own ability to control my calorie intake and eat things that I like, but I'm also leading from the front and positively influencing those around me. And then also, by bringing your own platters to events, it allows us to control the ingredients that go into them. So we can be smarter about these food choices and how they're prepared. So for instance, this is something Christina will do often for us. Sometimes, when it comes to desserts, a lot of times I'm not going to eat like the pre-prepared, cakes and cookies and stuff like that, but she'll make alternatives where she uses less oil or less sugar or less butter. So we're able to save calories in those capacities. And then we have extra calories for the other delicious items that we do want to enjoy. Another big thing is, how do you approach this meal? What are your habits? What behaviors are you doing around food? So a big thing is, don't put too much on your plate. It's been shown in literature, and you could see this from your own experience. It's shown that we eat the majority of what we put on our plate. So that's a clean plate effect. And so this has both a psychological and a physiological effect. And what we have to realize is, you're not limited to what you can eat at a holiday generally. You can always go back for more. So in my mind, it's better to underserve than to overserve yourself in terms of your plate, because if you overserve yourself, you're going to feel obligated. You're going to feel like you're wasting food, or you're disappointing those around you if you don't eat it. And what ends up happening oftentimes is you start stuffing yourself to just clean that plate to get to the actual items that you want. And you stuff yourself as a result without, actually eating things that you truly enjoy. So I would rather give a smaller serving, especially the things that maybe I'm a little bit less sure about. These are items I've never had, or I've never had this person prepare them, and I'm not sure if I'm going to like them or not. Why am I going to fill up a whole plate of them? And so, really, I like to ask myself, am I eating this because I'm hungry and I want it, or am I just trying to clean my plate to get to the next one? So I'd rather, my suggestion is to put a small serving on your plate and eat slowly and then decide if you want more. You can always go back for seconds. Another thing, and I always say this to clients when it comes to free meals, but this applies honestly to holidays, is I say this expression because a mentor of mine had told me part of this expression years ago. And honestly, it was so deliberate and blunt that it stuck out to me until this day. So I say it a little bit different than he did, but it's eat like an adult, not like an asshole. Because there's a difference between enjoying a holiday meal and stuffing yourself to the point of being sick. And that's often what people do. So, although the holiday season may be here only once a year, it's not like this is the only time that you'll be able to eat a delicious dinner. And I really try to get that across to clients to have an abundance mindset. Don't think about this as the Last Supper, because it's not. So, we have to keep in mind that overeating can not only derail our body composition progress and damage our relationship with food, where you may reinforce some of the binge restrict habits and patterns you may have struggled with in the past, but can also take away from your ability to engage with those around you and truly enjoy the holiday, as being stuffed to the point of sickness is a terrible way to spend an occasion. And anyone, whether it's been at a holiday or it's been post show, I'm sure you've had this experience yourself, Jeff, where you've eaten far too much post show and you have your whole
Yeah.
family and friends around you and you can't even enjoy the occasion. So, this is something I really suggest. Like, listen, eat like an adult, eat consciously, eat slowly, chew your food, is going to have a digestive benefits, calorie, consumption benefits. Is going to have all around benefits, but it's also going to allow you, instead of just stuffing yourself. You always see that person on a holiday occasion where it's all about the food. Yes, these festivities, there's a great benefit to the food that's there, but the food should be there as a centerpiece to connect you with those around you, to enjoy conversations, to engage. So put your fork down in between bites, chew your food and then take a sip of water, slow down, chew slowly, and engage with those around you. It's about making memories, not just consuming calories. And then when it comes to the holiday in general, this is actually a big suggestion that I do myself. And then I also suggest to my clients is eat your fill on the holiday, the foods that you want, enjoy yourself, maximize it, and then get rid of the rest or don't take home leftovers. Because one of the main mistakes many make during the holiday season is allowing these holiday celebratory meals to roll over from a free meal or a few free meals to like multiple days and weeks of cheating and of
Yeah.
overeating leftovers. So, enjoying a meal or two at each holiday is more than acceptable and compatible with your goals. But you should try to, you should aim to enjoy the meal and the company around you on the day of the holiday, and then get the foods and the items that aren't supportive of your goals out of your house, or just don't take them to your house, rather than leaving them stacked up in your fridge and kitchen calling your name and tempting you to indulge in more. And what I do personally is, if I'm going to take foods home or I have the holiday at my house, what I'll do is I will send my family home with the desserts, with the appetizers, things like that. And I'll generally stay with like the lean proteins and the veggies that I know that I'm going to be able to eat and enjoy later on. But I'm not going to stay with cookies, cakes, especially something like brownies. Brownies are a trigger food for me. So I'm not going to stay with that because I know it's just going to tempt me and I'm not going to want to waste the food. And a lot of times clients will say, well, I didn't want to waste the food. Well, you don't waste it if you give it to those you love. And if they truly enjoy those and they're not on a diet, or they are not, they don't have physique related goals. And if you don't give them those treats and those things, they're going to buy it elsewhere. You might as well save them the money and give it to them. And so these are all habits, that we really can improve our decisions, our actions, our behaviors around the holidays. And then another big one, actually, I need to hit on this, is limit your liquid calories, whether it be sugary alcoholic beverages, hot chocolate, eggnog,
Yeah.
soda, fruit juices. It's like sugar sweetened beverage, whatever it is, like limit your liquid calorie intake, especially around the holidays. We're getting in enough calories. And especially when it comes to alcohol, I really suggest to moderate the alcohol intake, because alcohol consumption, or more so overconsumption of alcohol, is something that can often derail many during the holiday season, not only due to the calorie effects that it has, but due to the physiological effects it has on our recovery, our sleep, all these different habits, our disinhibition. Because although alcohol is something that's customary during many holiday gatherings and occasions, you know, by no means am I saying or suggesting you should completely abstain from it, but I do think it's something that should be moderated, as alcohol is not only packed with calories and offers no satiety or fullness for the amount of calories it contains, but it also lowers our inhibition, specifically around food. So it causes you to be more likely to make poor decisions and choices around food. And we actually see in the literature, we specifically made make poor food choices in terms of having, we're driven to eat hyperpalatable foods that are generally higher in fat, higher in carbohydrates, and a mix of the two in terms of refined sugars, refined fats. And that's going to have that's going to have a compounding effect where you're overeating in excess after drinking in excess. And so you're going to be getting stuff, taking in things that aren't compatible or aren't beneficial to your goals. And if you do that throughout the whole holiday season, that's really where I see a lot of people go wrong. They're going for drinks more often. They're going to these holiday occasions. And even if they're not eating, they're over consuming alcohol. And this is the one thing, I have a lot of clients that know how to track and all that. I don't know anyone that tracks their alcohol accurately. And you want to know why? Because you go to a bar, you go to a holiday, who's weighing that out? You're guessing. And what a lot of people don't realize, they have no, I've asked clients that are very educated, well, they're experienced in this. I always ask them, how many calories do you think is in that? When we really look at calorie counts and like, say, just like liquor, generally 1 ounce has between 50 to 80 calories. Now, if you were to go to the bar, the average serving in a bar for a shot of liquor is 2 ounces. So right there, we're looking at approximately 100 to say 160 calories. But when you go to, Aunt Jane's holiday gathering, she's not giving you a 2 ounce shot. She's pouring you a whole glass. So you have 300-400 calories, and that's multiplying over all the drinks that you have. And then think about that across weeks, 6 weeks worth of drinking 2, 3, 4 times a week, and enjoying these occasions where you're not even accounting for that because they're liquid calories that are going in, and you're not accounting for them at all. Whereas when we eat food, when we overindulge in food, we feel this satiety response. We feel full. Sometimes we feel disgusted. We're accounting for that in the back of our heads. Not that everyone's tracking it, but they do know, hey, listen, I overconsume calories, but no one ever kind of draws back their weight gain, especially during the holidays, to over consuming alcohol. And that's something I really see people go wrong with.
I agree. Hey, real quick, because we're right up on that hour line. What are your thoughts on fasting? I tell clients this because I've had this before, and I'm like, hey, if that meal is going to be at 12 and the fast is like 14, 16 hours, maybe that's not bad, right? It just depends. Like I tell people, it's context. You know yourself. If you fast and you go on that meal and you get to be ravenous and you might overshoot it, I advise you not to. Have like a good little healthy breakfast that morning, maybe a little bit more protein, fats to kind of keep you full throughout the day. And that way you'll be ready for the carbs later or something like that. What are your thoughts on fasting before Thanksgiving, particularly?
I have changed my approach to this so much over the years. So early on in my coaching career, I thought using an intermittent fast or fasting until the time of the event would really create this calorie buffer, essentially. But what I experienced is at that point in my career, I started realizing that a lot of people were overdoing it. They had compensatory mechanisms, not only due to the hunger, but also they thought they had saved so many calories that they overdid it. And so it completely negated any of the calories they had saved. And it also reinforced some, disordered eating behaviors. And so after that, I got away from it. So what I do utilize with clients, it's not fasting, but generally I'll have a few different approaches that if someone wants to utilize a similar approach, I will make different suggestions based on their psychological profile and also all the data and the relationship I have with this individual. So I'm very objective. If I see someone that they've had disordered eating behaviors in the past, they've had binge eating, binge restrict cycles, I'm definitely going to advise against it. Now, if it's someone with a good relationship with food, I know they're very well in control of their habits, their behaviors, and their relationship with food, I'll say, listen, let's just modify your intake for the day. Let's save on calories. Let's do protein veggie at your first couple meals, but don't go a long period of time prior to the event. Let's go low calorie, but still satiety inducing foods. So a big salad with chicken, start your breakfast off with a big egg white omelet and veggies. Then for lunch, have a big chicken salad, big ass salad where you're filling, lots of fiber, lots of veggies, induce a ton of fullness with protein. And then previous to the holiday, let's start with a protein preload where you have a protein shake, 50 grams of protein. It's going to be 240 calories at most. And you're going to have that protein effect that's going to help with satiety. And then you'll have more of a calorie buffer. Another strategy that I use with clients is creating a calorie buffer. And I do that differently than I used to. So I used to do it where the week of the holiday itself, I used to have them, pull back on their calories a little bit. So say someone was at maintenance and they're eating 3,000 calories per day. I might take the first, Thanksgiving, for instance, is on Thursday. So maybe Tuesday and Wednesday, I would put them in a 500 calorie deficit. That would give them a 1,500 calorie extra buffer. Now I don't do it in that fashion because I've realized that a lot of people, they have an over response, especially initially to caloric restriction. It's more mental hunger than it is physical hunger. It's not like their leptin levels have completely dropped, but they just think mentally that they've built up a lot more calorie budget than they have. And then they overdo it and they kind of push a little bit too hard on that day. So what I'd rather do now, if someone has a very body composition related goal where going way too over on their calories could hurt their body composition progress, is I like them to gauge around how many calories. Now, this is an estimation, but how many calories did you go over during the meal itself? And sometimes I'll just have them send me over what they ate and I'll do a rough estimation of it. And then in the subsequent weeks, I will pull back calories a little bit to accommodate the over excess of calories that they ate on the holiday, but it's done after the holiday rather than before. So they had no compensatory mechanisms. They went into, say, Thanksgiving completely filled on their normal foods. And then we allow for that calorie buffer by taking away. But generally, what I like to do is utilizing no more than a 20% borrowing technique, meaning that if I'm going to have a client take from one day to another, and I utilize this with clients, even if they're traveling or they're on vacation, you can take 20% of your calories away from another day and place them on another day. So for instance, someone's eating 2,000 calories, that's 400 calories. You can take 400 calories out of that, eat 1,600 calories, and then the next day eat 2,400 calories, because when we look at the balance across the week, you're still going to be at that same 2,000 calorie intake. But more than 20%, generally, it's a very large margin to take away from one day. So it's going to induce greater feelings of hunger, greater, increases in appetite and cravings. And then it's also giving such a large buffer on the day itself that they're overeating to extreme. So I've seen some coaches that have said, listen, slash your calories by 50% the day before and the day of the holiday. And then those clients feel starved on those days and they go into the holiday and they don't eat just back, the 2,000 calories that they save during those 2 other days. They eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories because they just overdo it. So I don't like reinforcing those binge restrict habits with clients.
Oh, good point, man. Yeah, I think, like I tell people, like as a coach, I can only go off your prior history. So if you know that is a bad situation, don't try it. But for some people like me, it works really well. I won't be doing it this year because I had the boys. So we're going to go work out first thing that morning at the gym and do our father-son lift. So I know them. They're going to be like, let's do shoulders and arms. But anyway, dude, I think this is a pretty jam-packed episode of stuff. I know we had some different topics in there. Hopefully you all who listen feel like we gave you guys enough information to help survive the holidays and at least set yourself up for victory. Yeah, B, what's up?
Yeah, no, not even survive, guys. Really, the intention of this is don't focus on just surviving the holiday season. Aim to thrive this year, to maintain the progress you've made, and then
Agreed.
set yourself up for more going forward. Because a lot of people, just to hit on this, a lot of people, one of the mentalities that they take, they get this into this mindset, oh, it's just the holidays. Well, it's 6 weeks. If you prolong your goals for 6 weeks, you're going to be 6 weeks behind all those that stayed on track during this occasion. And I don't mean the occasions themselves, but during the majority of the 6 weeks. Like I counted for, there's 3 to 4 days. That's 11% at most during the holiday season. So 89 other percent of the time, you could be on track and making strides towards your goals. And also, a big thing is those that get ahead, plan ahead. So really, instead of waiting and being like the average American that does gain 2.2 pounds per year, with the majority of that being during the holiday occasion, be the person that says, listen, I'm not going to wait till New Year's resolution this year. I'm not going to wait till New Year's to start my healthy habits or to
Agreed.
re-kickstart my healthy habits. I'm going to maintain them during the holiday. I'm going to account for days where I go off plan and I have some freedom and some flexibility and I enjoy the holidays with my family, but the next day I'm back on, because guys, you are only one meal, one day, one decision away from being back on track. So just even if you overdo it during these holidays themselves, that's fine. The biggest thing is not focusing on the past mistakes that you made. It's about making positive progress moving forward. So if you slip up, you overeat, something happens on the holiday itself, you always have the next day to start back on. And it's going to be a much better result if you do so, if you get right back on the wagon the next day, than rather than saying, well, I fucked up yesterday, so what the hell? Let me keep going with it.
I agree 100%, man. You have anything else you'd like to say, or where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, guys. Overall, just make sure your effort matches your expectations. A lot of people, they don't want to gain weight during this period of time. So enjoy your holidays, but also approach the rest of the time around this with your best put your best foot forward to execute on the goals, the habits, the behaviors that are going to lead you to success. And realize that your effort will always yield the effort that you put in will yield the results that you get. So don't, misestimate or don't allow yourself for your actions to not align with your ambitions. So that's a big thing. But guys, you can reach out to me on Instagram at @BrandonDeCruz_, or my email for anyone that needs to reach out to me is bdecruzfitness@gmail.com.
I actually want to issue a challenge to everyone. This hall, as a gym owner, I see this. you're going to see a lot of people starting to infiltrate the gyms. A lot of people are very unhealthy after COVID. There were a lot of bad habits that were picked up. We were seeing more and more people join our gym, which is Brandon's been in my gym. And if you visited Iron House, you would probably say we're more of an advanced facility, but we're getting a lot of beginners. So anyone who has experience, when you see someone doing something wrong or they ask you for help, don't be a fucking dick. Answer the question the right way, help them out. These
And
people want
and
help.
encourage them too.
Yeah, and encourage them, man. And you know what? There's always good trainers in your gym. And if you're not one of them, refer them to someone in the gym who can help them out. Because the more people that we can get to take care of themselves, the better everyone's going to feel and the better everyone gets as a long impact down the road. So I challenge everybody to go into the new year looking at it better. If you're interested in getting hold of me, I'm Jeff Unbreakable Black on Instagram, and my email is jeff@relentlessforever.com. Except, don't fucking email Brandon and I trying to sell us some shit. Like, that's not going to probably be an email we respond to. But if you want to collaborate and you're cool and shit, we would love to have that email. Or if you guys got questions, or if you're interested in joining either of our coaching rosters, we want to hear that. But don't fucking email us trying to sell shit. Sorry, Miss Brandon's mom, for cussing there at the end, but we get some wild emails sometimes. I'm like, well, no. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us. And B, man, I'll catch you later this week.
Sounds good, my man. Later.
Peace.